I want to share something personal with you all, something that might even shock a few of you. I am a nurse. Yeah, it's true. I mean, if I asked you to close your eyes and picture a nurse in your head, be honest with me. That's not the image that's going to come to mind, right? And that's such a weird thing to shock people with, being a nurse, because being a nurse is just part of who I am. It impacts how I think, how I care for others, even how I pay my mortgage. But if I'm being honest with you, I didn't want to stand on this stage and tell you I was a nurse. Not because I'm not infinitely proud of my profession, but because I know how most of the world sees nurses when it comes to innovation. They don't see us at all. And I wanted to be up here as an innovation expert. See, nursing is one of many professions that is overlooked for its value when it comes to innovation. Sure, for the last 17 years, we've been seen as the most trusted profession in America. But if I asked you all to do a search of the most innovative professions in the world, you wouldn't find nurses on a single list. And that's just not an outsider's perspective of the profession. When people start rating you that way or don't rate you that way, you start to believe it, and it's starting to impact my colleagues at the bedside. We start to believe that we are what people say we are not, or more appropriately, what we haven't been given the permission to do. We say things like, I am just a nurse. And if you're not a nurse, then maybe you said something like, I'm just a parent. Or you said, I'm just a teacher. I don't have the permission to be anything other than that. And that's why I want to challenge everyone in this room who has ever felt like you are just something. Because although I am a nurse, I'm also a husband, I'm a father, I'm a teacher, I'm even a chief innovation officer. And in that role, I have a privilege of working with people from a variety of different professional and education backgrounds. And I've found that within each of us is this fundamental truth. We all have the ability to change the world. I know that in this room are thousands of ideas just bursting at the surface, waiting to get out, if someone would only give you the permission and the pathway to be innovative. But here's the thing. Innovation is not an elitist sport. It's not for people with fancy titles like me. In fact, we know that innovation is most impactful when it's initiated by those who have the firmest understanding of the problem that needs to be solved. The people at the front lines, the accountants, the moms, the teachers, the physicians, the nurses. There's a concept known as the ideation rate, which is determined to be the greatest way to measure your impact or your return on investment for innovation. And it's defined as the number of ideas that are generated by frontline staff and then approved by management. So if organizations want to maximize their innovation impact, they need to democratize innovation and give a pathway for everyone to bring their ideas to life. Now, surely this isn't simple. You can't just flip a switch. We're all running this rat race together, competing against our peers and other people in our industries. I'm sure many times you've tried to do this yourselves and find yourself running the same hurdles over and over again. Or maybe you've had the opportunity to even begin working on an idea and made your way to the starting line, looking for mentorship and guidance along the way. But you found that when you got there, you were alone. There was no one there to tell you when the race would begin or even what direction you needed to run. And you should know that that's not a you problem. That's a systems problem. You see, systems have been focusing too much on building a culture of innovation. And while culture is incredibly important, if you don't have a formidable structure of innovation in place, then your culture is going to dwindle. Now, the good news is that building a proper structure of innovation only takes two key elements that are free. The first is that you have to provide the permission to innovate. We take for granted, because we use innovation all the time in a variety of different ways, and most of us have it built into our mission, vision, and values, that all of our employees, all of our team members see themselves in that statement. But that's not the case. So you have to explicitly provide the permission to innovate. You need to sit down with people and ask them what they're excited about. What barriers do they keep running into over and over again? What problems do they wish we would solve for them? And then give them the permission to solve them themselves. And once you provide that permission, then you have to validate that their ideas are worth pursuing. Now, surely not every idea is going to be a home run, but if you don't have a structure of innovation in place, people can't even take a swing. So the best ways to provide validation for innovation is through a concept we call inspirational capital. Now, inspirational capital can take a variety of different forms. It can be grants, it can be funding, it can be access to amazing people who can help you build prototypes. But the most effective method of inspirational capital is the one-on-one conversation. When you sit down with someone and say, hey, I'm glad you're on our team. We believe in you and your ideas, and we're going to do everything within our power to get you set up for success. Imagine if you were told that at work. And for those of you who work with us, you know that we've put this model into practice at The Ohio State University through the Innovation Studio. It's out of the College of Nursing, and it's a movable makerspace that's sprinkled in with just a little bit of Shark Tank. It's open to all students, faculty, and staff across campus, and inside you're going to find almost every prototyping tool you can imagine, from 3D printers to laser cutters. And we make 5 tour stops throughout the year, staying at a different location for about 7 weeks at a time. And that is how we provide the permission to innovate. We set up a physical space outside of a high-traffic location on our university that most people walk past at least once a week. And as these people are walking by, we ask them to come in and engage with us. We ask them what they're excited about, what makes them curious, what things they wish they could solve themselves if they only had the permission. And then we provide that permission. At the end of that 7-week tour stop, we have a pitch day, and then we pack everything up in a box truck and move on to a new location. But that pitch day is really important, because that pitch day is where we provide the validation. You see, we do something at Ohio State that no other organization that we are aware of has done to democratize innovation. We fund every team. As long as teams meet our 3 simple criteria for investment, we guarantee them at least 1 round of funding from the Innovation Studio. And then because we make those 5 tour stops throughout the year, teams are encouraged to go out and do great things with those resources and come back and ask for subsequent rounds of funding. And as long as they continue to meet their milestones and be good stewards of their resources, then we continue to support them. Now, I can imagine what you're thinking. At an organization that large, there's no way that this is a sustainable model. It has to be too expensive. But that's not the case. And it's not the case for a specific reason. Because unlike other models that you've heard in this space where you give a large amount of money to just a select group of people, we've developed a microfinance model. We give away small dollar amounts to every team that comes in the door. Teams typically receive between $250 and $500 for that first round of funding. And then remember, they're encouraged to come back over and over again to ask additional resources, and all along the way, we're layering inspirational capital on top of them. Now, I'd imagine that you're thinking at this point, this guy is just basically having a millennial delusion on stage right now. He's pitching to us the participation trophy model of innovation, right? And that's true. This is the participation trophy model of innovation. But you have to remember the evidence shows that it works, and we're building a pretty compelling case for it ourselves. This is Karen, who is a clinical nurse specialist at the Ross Hart Hospital. She was leading a team who wanted to help patients who are addicted to opioids stay safe while they are hospitalized. You see, these patients, they look a lot like you and me. They're not wearing a sign that says, I'm struggling with addiction. And sometimes they get something that's very scary for them, an IV, direct access to inject drugs. So Karen's team developed a tape that could go over the port of every IV to prohibit people from accessing their lines. And this tape was also tamper evident, so that if people were attempting to get into their lines, we'd be able to see that and provide them with additional support services. Now, Karen and her team came to the Innovation Studio time and time again working on different prototypes, and they figured out how to use just about every tool within our space. And in 9 months, they ended up signing an international licensing deal with one of the world's top distributors of their product category. Now, in total, we spent $240.20 to get that idea off the ground. Thank you. Thank you. You see, innovation doesn't have to be expensive. And when you involve the people at the front lines and empower them to solve their problems, they most often come up with elegant solutions that are incredibly cost effective. And now, because Karen and her team have this international licensing deal, Their product that was going to get implemented at just one location is going to impact people around the world. Now, Courtney's another example. She came to the Innovation Studio wanting to write a children's book, and she had never done this before. So she asked for access to an illustrator who could help her with her book, and then some information about self-publishing. We were able to connect her to a design student, and together over 10 months, they worked together to self-publish their book. And when it debuted on Amazon, it was the #1 bestseller in their category. Now remember, this isn't just for nurses though. No matter people's backgrounds, no matter their expertise, we democratize innovation for all. And one of our favorite examples of this is a team that was led by a geography student named Forrest. His team wanted to create one of the world's highest flying drones to measure glacial melt in Peru. And they gave us perhaps the most compelling quote on why democratizing innovation is important. Forrest said, "Before the Innovation Studio, I was dumpster diving for parts." Now, after that team received funding from the studio, they are encouraged to file 15 patent applications. You see, when the proper structure of innovation is in place, almost anything is possible. So what if our local government started to adopt this model to democratize innovation? What if at your local library, you had access to not only a makerspace, but to programs that provided you with the permission and the innovation to reach for your dreams? What if CEOs across the world started to develop incentive programs that would take people at the front lines and empower them to solve systems problems? Maybe then people like them, who have always defined themselves by what they were not, would see themselves for who they are and say with pride, "I am a nurse, I am a parent, I am a teacher, I am an innovator." Thank you.